Welcome to this episode of the Wellbeing Room. Today, I'm very honored to have with me in the Wellbeing Room Eric Klein, who is a lineage holder in the Kriya Yoga lineage. Eric was trained, ordained, and empowered by Goswami Kriyananda to share the Kriya Dharma. He's lived this path for 50 years with his wife Devi and shared it with over 25,000 people, including seekers from every faith, tradition, and spiritual but not religious folks. Eric's grounded approach appeals to parents, artists, yogis, CEOs, surfers, and political leaders. He has had the privilege to teach meditation to students around the world, coach individuals to recognize and live their soulful purpose, create mindfulness programs for corporations, nonprofits, and governmental agencies, guide spiritual retreats for individuals and groups, write best-selling books on leadership and spirituality, and cultivate a daily practice of Kriya meditation, study, and sharing the blessings of this awakening pathway. So welcome to the Wellbeing Room, Eric. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot to talk about today because part of the reason I invited you here, well, there's a couple of reasons, but I guess one of the main reasons is I'm really interested to learn more about what Kriya Yoga is. I really don't have any specific understanding of what Kriya Yoga is and is about. And I'm very interested to hear that you've been practicing this for such a long time. So you're obviously, very deep, have a deep practice and a deep experience of what it is. So please, in your own words, I would love to hear what you believe Kriya Yoga to be and how you practice it and share it with others.
Okay. First of all, let's take the word. Everyone listening probably has heard of yoga. So,
yes.
But maybe has different associations for that word, and in the current culture around the world, mostly it's associated with the aspect of yoga which broadly is hatha yoga, the physical asanas, postures, movements, and such.
Yeah.
And so hatha yoga is a form of yoga using the body to create the state of yoga, which is the state of integration. Yoga is one way to understand it, means integration.
Yeah.
Of what? Of your life, of whatever's been fragmented, whether that's emotionally, psychologically, physically, financially, relationally. We can keep going. Where there's fragmentation in our experience, that means there's fragmentation in our consciousness. So all yoga paths are about integration. They have different ways of cultivating that. And Kriya Yoga, let's take that word, Kriya. Kriya is a Sanskrit word, comes from a root word, Kri. So Sanskrit is kind of like Legos. There's little pieces and then you build bigger words off of it. So the littlest piece is called Kri, and it means action. And one of the words that everyone listening will know is karma. That comes from the same root.
Okay.
So karma is action, but karma connotes a kind of action that is habitual, unconscious, and reactive. When we live out our life in a reactive, unconscious, habitual way, we're just living out our karma. We're repeating it over and over.
Yeah.
Kriya is a way of taking action in consciousness. So meditatively, primarily, it's a way of meditative action that cultivates integration of our mind, of our emotions, of all the fragments of consciousness that we've abandoned and because we couldn't handle them or forgot about in our journey through life. They're still there. They're still calling for attention, and often those fragments call for attention in ways that create suffering for us. So Kriya is a form of contemplative practice, meditative practice primarily, that cultivates the integration, the reintegration, maybe is a better word even, the reintegration of that which has been fragmented so that we can return to consciously our original wholeness.
Yeah, wow. Okay.
Now, Kriya also, I should say, because we were talking before the recording,
Yeah.
since it just means action that integrates, there are many, many flavors, like of ice cream or whatever. There are many flavors of Kriya Yoga.
Okay.
And
just like there's many flavors of Hatha yoga.
just like there are many flavors of Hatha Yoga, right? And you can, if you go from studio to studio, you can see the thread that connects them, but there'll be different emphasis. Some will emphasize, strength. Some will emphasize presence. Some will emphasize the breath. They all involve all those things, but they have different emphasis. Same with this word Kriya. So they're and so you could say these different flavors are different lineages, different streams that come out of this original impulse. And I'm, so the lineage that I'm part of flows through a gentleman back in the late 1800s was basically empowered to take a practice that had been had been completely hidden from the public, was taught only in ashrams and in secluded sort of cave-like environments and stuff. And the sages of that at that time were noticing the Industrial Revolution and sensing this is a snowball of stress, tension, and chaos that's coming, and it's going to just proliferate. And so we need to take this powerful methodology and move it out of the caves and into the marketplace, into the world. And there was a gentleman named Lahari Mahasaya who was had a regular job, and he had a family, and he was the guy. They're like, take it. And he came so he demonstrated this sort of new ethos, which was that you can have, I like to say, you can have an ordinary life and at the same time cultivate the deep awakening that used to be reserved for those who left the world and retreated into monastic or cave-like settings. And that's the flavor that comes through the line of the lineage that I'm associated with, a real recognition and valuing of this world and our engagement with this world, and not separating our spiritual life from our earth life in any way. My teacher used to say, your earth life is your spiritual life if you know how to approach it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's right. Yeah. That's fascinating. So what does a Kriya Yoga practice look like? I'm very curious.
Okay. I like to divide it up into 3 disciplines. I'll call it that. So one of the disciplines is the discipline of cultivating and deepening your inner attunement, your communion with what I call the radiance, the presence. Some people would call it the divine. It's that's the discipline of turning and uplifting our consciousness. So there's a directionality. It's turning around, going in and lifting up, not just going in and sort of ruminating in your current state, but going in and using methodologies to elevate, to lift up the center of gravity of your attention to a point where you're now sensitive to and open to and attuned to a quality of presence that is free, open, loving, and aware. So that's one movement, inward and upward. If we just go inward and upward, we're not going to be living our ordinary life, right? We have to come back.
Yes.
So the next movement is downward. The downward movement is opening our body mind, taking that radiance into our body mind. And that's the process of healing and reintegrating love, presence, beauty, clarity into the body mind. And when that happens, it sort of reconfigures our memory tracks. It softens our tensions. It liberates our habitual perspectives. And then the third movement is out. You come back out. We went in, we went up, we came back down. Now we come back out, and we embody and express that in our unique way. And that's one of the characteristics also of this lineage, is like a real cherishing of the fact that everyone who comes out of that universal state of awakeness is going to express it in a very individual way. It's not like everyone has to talk in a yoga voice or something like that, you know. It's or like have the same lifestyle. Even we each have to find our own lifestyle that's going to support and help us sustain that clarity. But it will vary from person to person. So the outward expression is going to be the way we share our uniqueness, our gifts, our presence with our world. And I like say our world is the room we're in. You know, it's not like some abstraction. It's really, you know, just the room you're in and the real people you're dealing with in your life.
Yeah. That's interesting. So
there's techniques, obviously, in all that. Particularly, there's techniques in the in and the down. You know, the inward and upturning. That most people would consider that the sort of Kriya proper, the methods of meditative interning. And but it's important I think from this lineage perspective, that's just one of the aspects of it. You know, it's the aspect that most people who find it and read books, like the most famous book in this lineage is written by Paramahansa Yogananda, and it's called The Autobiography of a Yogi. You know, it's millions of people around the world have read that book. And he talks about Kriya Yoga in that book. And as a methodology, an inner methodology of drawing the prana, drawing the life energies that have been scattered. That's what I was referring to as fragmented, scattered, and drawing them back into the central channel of the body, lifting them up to a point of communion where they open to, in his language, God, in my language, the radiance. And that's what most people want who get attracted to this. They want to, because they're suffering. They find, you know, they woke up to the fact that it's life is hard and that they're somehow perpetuating a dissatisfaction, and they want freedom, and they hear about enlightenment, and they hear about awakening, and so they want that technique. That's beautiful. I certainly was with them when I found this methodology when I was a young teenager, and it was like I was living in a dysfunctional family and a crazy life, and I like, get me out of I want to get out of here. But as my teacher told me when I very first met him, and I was just turned 19, and he said to me, he looked at me, he goes, you're going to have to go out. You're going to have to go out and earn the soybean bacon. And I don't know if it's it's an expression in the United States that you got to earn the bacon, which means, okay, face the world, you know, and deal with your life in all of its dimensions and the earth life. And he could see it wasn't hard. And I was a spaced out, you know, yogi hippie guy. And he was like, you're going to have to earn the soybean bacon, get out there. Now, I didn't really buy that, and I tried to avoid that for many years. But so he told me he said, this is part of the path of awakening, includes, especially for someone like you, Eric, coming out and engaging with the world. And he said at the time, the more you meet the world with courage and openness, you will have greater and deeper meditations. Now, if he didn't say the same thing to everybody, some people who were like lost in their everyday life, and you know, it would say, let go of it and turn in. Again, there's a unique path for each of us based on you could say, our particular style of avoiding our life. Some people avoid their life by being very busy. Some people avoid their life by being very withdrawn. And I was more of a withdrawn type. So he was encouraging me to go out because that will begin to balance and integrate the energies of your being and integrate your consciousness. I didn't believe him because I thought the goal was to go in, up, and escape. But there's no escape, you know, there's nowhere to go. We're immersed in existence and we'll never leave eternally. We're immersed in life itself. There's nowhere to go. There's only the awakening.
Wow. Okay. That's a big statement.
Yeah.
Can you unpack
You're
that for me a little
eternal.
bit? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. The idea is, well, first of all, it's an idea, but the invitation of Kriya Yoga and all mystical paths is to discover experientially that which you are, that is ever present.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
It's conventionally we all understand the same I that's listening to this conversation right now was there before this podcast went on. When you were 1, you were there. When you were 12, you were there. The form, the structure, the cognitive capacity, the emotional intelligence, the biological maturity, that was all changing, but you were there as the presence,
Yeah.
as the one who was witnessing it all, including your thoughts. Because even at a young age, you would like, I'm thinking this. Who was that? Who was being identified then? The I was there all the time, and as the I is not a thing. It's the one who is present. It's you.
Yeah.
You're eternal.
Yeah.
And as my teacher would say to me, how do you want to live in eternity? You're doing it right now. How do you want to live? This is part of your eternity.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So to live with love, to live with wisdom, to live with creativity, to live with joy, to live with service, cultivating that capacity now, it's the shift from karmically hiding and fighting our life. That's what karma really is. Karma is resistance to life. It's a failure. It's a failing strategy because you can't win it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kriya is consenting to and opening to and aligning with the energy and the intelligence of life itself, which will, one, return you to your true nature. This is eternal. And two, will facilitate your embodiment of that true nature in the unique situation that you're in now, which will always change. Yeah. So you're eternal as a being in an endless universe of yin yang, change and flux.
So when you say eternal, you're meaning beyond death. Is that correct?
Yeah. Prior to, and beyond birth too. Both. Yeah. Now, in our tradition, the idea is that one of the main goals of this practicing is to cultivate what we call continuity of consciousness through birth, death, and rebirth. But continuity of birth, death, and rebirth, that happens every day.
Yeah.
So, but even, let's tighten it up. It happens every breath. If you've ever sat to meditate, you know it's hard to have continuity of consciousness through inhale, exhale.
Yeah.
That's one birth, death, rebirth process. And it only took a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
And if we sit down to practice meditation, we realize I don't have continuity of consciousness for a breath.
Yeah.
So that's where we start. And like all yogic and mystical practices around the world and in every tradition, the breath is at the heart of it because it's the most reliable, consistent, ever-present example of that cycle of birth, death, rebirth. It's just endlessly teaching us. And cultivating continuity of consciousness means being present through that cycle of becoming.
Yeah.
So that's so we start with the breath, and we can expand it out quite organically to different levels. It's like when I was first practicing yoga before I met my teacher, when I was still living at home with my in high school, we call it in the States.
Yeah.
So we lived in this apartment in New York City, and was practicing. I had the bedroom that when they built this fancy building, this big old building, big apartment, and at the back by the kitchen was the place for the servants. So these little rooms, we didn't have any servants, but I lived back there. So I really had my own little yoga cave. Everyone else in the family lived at the other end of the house, which was fabulous for me.
Yeah.
So I would do my practice, my hatha yoga, breathing, and then I'd sit and meditate in the morning, and I'd enter a place of, shanti, of peace, of inner contentment, balance. And there was this hallway between my bedroom and the kitchen. So I'd hear my mother and my brother and sister coming in for breakfast in the morning, and I would walk in the hallway, which was about 8 feet long. And I started this experiment, which was, can I sustain my meditative presence and this peacefulness through the walk to the hallway? Can I get out to the kitchen and still be in a yogic mindset?
Yeah.
The answer is no. I could never make it, because I would start hearing my family. I would just return to angry Eric, the teenager,
Just dissolves like that, doesn't it?
It doesn't. It does, right? And so continuity of consciousness is building our capacity, our embodied capacity. That's the down movement. It's not so hard to go up. Going down, bringing it back down into our body mind, so we can then walk out through the 8-foot corridor, so to speak, and meet our family, our life.
Yeah. So have you found over your many years of practice that is actually an achievable thing now? Like, do you find that you can maintain that? And
you have to ask my wife, but because we're the last to know, really. What I have found is that peace is there, and it's easily available. It doesn't mean, see, we still have a human nervous system.
Yes.
For one, so the input, the lizard brain is still active. The limbic brain and the, oh, don't you love me? That part, the lizard brain is like, is it safe? And then the limbic brain is more like, do I belong? And even the neocortex is about, how can I figure this out? There's something beyond all of that, which is awareness itself. And my experience is that all the reactive programs, I think the word that I like is they soften. And our capacity to notice them at subtler and subtler levels and to readjust increases. It's like it's like this. It's a metaphor is, if you have a fire in your house, the easiest time to put it out is when it's a spark. It's still easy when it's a match. If it's just starting on the carpet, you can probably handle it. But once the wall goes up and by the time you have to call the fire department, they're going to ruin your house just to put out the fire.
Yeah.
It's the easiest time to heal a relationship is at the initial sense of discord. It's also the easiest time to ignore the discord because it's not that big.
Yeah, that's a really
And what
good
we
point.
do in meditation is we are cultivating our capacity to respond to subtle indicators with gentle, loving awareness, to take them seriously, the subtle indicators in our own being. So many of us have had, the signal, this is not a good relationship, or this is not a conversation I want to be in, or this person isn't, but we kind of override it. A woman came to talk to me, and she said, she came to talk to me for an astrology conversation, because one of the aspects of our lineage is that we use the symbolism of astrology as a way of looking at the way we fragment our consciousness and how to reintegrate it.
Interesting.
And
Okay.
we call it astrology for awakening, not astrology for how to control your life, which is most of what astrology is used for. But she came to me and she said, I had doubts, but I was there. Where were you? I was being walked down the aisle. Okay, she had doubts about this relationship. And she said, I found myself as I was walking down, my dad was walking me down the aisle, and I knew this is a mistake.
Mm.
And then I thought, but all the food is here, the catering, and all these people,
Mm-hmm.
and the flowers. And I just went with it. That's karma right there. That's karma.
Oh,
She
I can
had
relate
she
to
had a
that.
she had a moment, right, of clarity.
Mm.
She hadn't cultivated her capacity to
Mm.
take her inner wisdom seriously and to live it and to embody
Yeah.
it. The karmic momentum symbolized by the catering, and
Yeah.
all, it overrode her awareness. We're trying to reverse that equation and
Mm.
become 51% more aware of our true
Mm.
nature.
Yeah.
And then we're in good shape.
Yeah. I have a question about that because I have had similar experience.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, the years that followed after that particular moment, were still valuable learning life lessons and joyful
Yes.
moments. It wasn't all like, oh my God, like, why didn't I just say
Yeah.
no when I should have? I don't know, I guess and then is it like a matter of repairing that karma afterwards, or like
Yeah.
what's,
That's
can you just
beautiful. If I'm
explain?
understanding, so a couple of things you're saying is one, we'll take a relationship or we could take a job. Those are two big classic environments where it's like,
Yeah.
it wasn't quote all bad, right? There was beautiful moments, joy, love, there was creativity, there was elements of goodness, truth, and beauty, and there was elements of neurotic suffering, let's call
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
All
Sure.
right.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, you leave the job or you change the relationship because you you realize it's not congruent enough
Yeah.
with your true sense of goodness, truth, and beauty.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What do you do moving forward? And how do you heal the karma? And that's really important
Mm.
because the karma is in you, is in us.
Mm.
The people, events, and things are the bringers of they're just the enactment of our karma. It's our karma.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It's
And
us, not them. Yeah.
it's not them.
No.
It isn't. It's not your parents, it's not your lovers, it's not your teachers, it's not your bosses, right? It's we are, and this is a hard one to hold on to, but well, we are the creators of our own karma.
Mm.
We are and that's beautiful. We're the creative source of our life experience.
Mm.
So many, Westerners will think, it's my fault. It's not about whose fault it is. It's about noticing I'm the source. So I can create the karma's in me, the fragmentations in my consciousness.
Yeah.
And that means I can heal my karma now.
Mm.
It's not past. It's just a pattern
Yeah.
that is living in me now.
Mm-hmm.
I remember what it was like to enact that, so to speak, in my history. That's good to remember it because you can maybe, through remembering it deep enough, realize I want to repattern that, recode that.
Yeah.
And the first step is to in a sense, to say this: I forgive the 20-year-old me and the 20-year-old lover and the 20-year-old, the boss of 20 years ago. It's truly to forgive them because to realize they're all parts of me. They're all my memories. And Forgive them means I take them back in and I lift them up to the light, because that's all they want anyway, is to be seen and loved and freed.
Yeah.
I hope that communicates.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, we call it healing family karma. We're all carrying the karma of our family, not just of our origin, but of our ancestors. It's part of the design, and they're all sitting there symbolically and actually going, are you going to be the one who's going to free me? Because, it's just generation after generation, everyone's just like carrying the unconsciousness forward. And it's like, will someone just turn
do
around
something
and heal?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the shift from karma to kriya, saying, you know what? The blaming stops here, right here.
Yeah.
I'm just, and we're all crazy. Fine. You're also all beautiful. I'm going to love every part of myself.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you. Thank you for walking me through that. Yeah, so much coming up in my head about family and karma and
yeah, they're all there. It's how it's the beauty of our human incarnation, right? Is that our karma, our soul level karma, gets enacted by the people in the room we're in, which is usually our family. Everyone in the family has a resonance. We all have a similar, like the famous one is addiction. So if you take an addiction, everyone in the family has a role. Some are the addicts, some are the saviors. There's all these, some are the blamers. But we're all circling around the same thing together, which is, how do we heal this karma, this pattern? And we all are doing it we're all enacting the addiction from a different angle. And if we can overcome our own part in that storyline, we're helping the whole family.
Yeah.
It's true with every family.
Yeah.
Every family has their own version of that.
Yeah. Just thinking about my family.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's really hard though, because everyone's at a different point, like
yeah.
How do you?
They are, but it's not that's their journey. That's the part of them. They have their journey part. The part of I have is to realize how I see them is my projection. How I hold them is my projection.
Yeah.
I don't need to change them. I don't.
No. Yeah.
I mean, we all have the impulse to do that, and there's both a healthy aspect to it and a neurotic aspect to it. The healthy aspect to it, from a Kriya perspective, is we realize, yeah, we do need to change them. The way we see them, that's what we need to, because we're creating our experience of them.
Yeah.
As a problem. Now, part of the challenge is we also, like those of us who become parents, right? As an example, or teachers or bosses, we have a role then and a responsibility, which is to help those people who are, I'll use the word dependent on us in a role sense, right?
Yeah.
Cultivate their own awakeness and their own happiness and their own creativity and all that. And that can mean setting boundaries. And that can mean being clear, having standards. And if we haven't integrated our own inner disciplinarian, if we haven't found our own authority that says to our own parts, I love you, and you can't be that way inside me, to the parts, like the angry part should not be driving your car,
No, that's right.
Right? It's like, it's okay to be, I'm not going to throw you out of the car. I'm not going to throw you out of my life because I know you have energy. I want your energy. I just don't want you in charge. Okay. So I have an inner authority, an inner leader, so to speak. And if I've integrated that to the degree that I've integrated that, when my kids are, enacting their unintegrated patterns, I'll just say, hey, That's not acceptable. And we have standards. So it goes both ways. Yeah, our inner integration, then that's the outward expression, right? The inward, upward, downward, and outward. Our outer expression is going to be a mirror of our integration.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So how do we do that in situations where there's tension in the room? You know, you're at a family gathering or something, or,
right.
you know, someone's come in already, maybe they're angry or they're hurt, or they're, you know, they're coming from that place where they're not integrated.
For sure. For sure.
How do you manage in those situations?
There's no, you know, every situation is unique, but there is a general description, which is do your practice before the event. You know, it's not like it came out of nowhere. You know, every culture has their own version of the United States has Thanksgiving, you know, which is the symbolism of when the whole family gets together and the uncle gets drunk and makes insane comments, and then some cousin screams at him. Yeah. And it's like, everyone's just waiting for that to happen, you know?
Yeah.
So that's karma. It just repeats, you know, on a cycle. But the karma, Thanksgiving's already happening. You don't have to wait for that November. It's already happening in our own consciousness. So for us, as our role, our part of that mandala, of that says, do the inner work. Do the inner work. Can I meditate on Uncle Hiram? You know, which is to say, can I go inside and experience Uncle Hiram without reactivity? Can, you know, in Western Christianity or Western religion, can I pray for him? Not fix him, Lord, fix him, Lord. Just, can I actually pray and go, I want you to have everything you want. You're all the happiness. What you love cigars, I want you to have the greatest cigars, best alcohol. I want whatever you really want. I want you to have that. No, I have my judger inside going, he's terrible. He can't have, that's bad. That's a symbol of my own resistance to that life force that he represents, right? So the practice has to, you know, it's ongoing. We don't have to wait for the event. Start now, because the event, we know what's going to happen. It's not a secret. Okay.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
And then, you know, then the event happens, you do your best, and then you reflect afterwards and notice, where did I get caught? And also notice, where did I sustain that balance? Oh, and appreciate and strengthen that. Appreciate your own presence. That cultivates it, right?
Yeah. So you kind of almost need, you know, you do that pre-work, which is consistent
every day.
And then
it's like every day.
Yeah. And then in that situation, you just try and stay attuned to that, I guess. Is it like in your mind, you're going, you know, forgiveness, you know,
well, I think it's that. It can be that, but it's also, and this is something you know very well, it's the early signals are somatic. By the time you're thinking he's an idiot, it's way gone. It's far out gone. Okay. So this all is embodied. We're wanting to notice the reactivity and become familiar with it at a deep somatic level. And because that's where we're changing the wiring. And through the meditation, we're changing it organically. And when we notice the tension pattern, we don't have to let it go any further. That's the moment to turn around and soften with a breath. Because the reactivity, by the time it turns into thought, it's about to turn into speech. And then we're off to the races, right?
Yeah.
So we want to catch it as early in the sequence. That's the symbol of the spark and the fire. The spark is a somatic, just a subtle sensation. That's the place.
Yeah. It's interesting because I find in my situation with family and stuff where I have this experience with the family and I just don't speak at all. Like I just maintain silence as much as possible because I'm afraid of what I might say is going to upset someone, or, you know, it's going to be the wrong thing to say. So but then I leave that situation and I'm just like all wound up, you know.
Sure. So so there's some wisdom in, you know, there's some wisdom in that silence, right? You've stopped it. It probably has reached a point where the fact that it's kind of gotten close to your lips, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, just to keep your mouth closed and won't get out, right? So there's pressure building up in the system.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay. So, and afterwards, well, I do what I'm sure you already do. The wisdom factor is first, do things, breathe, move, forget about thinking about it, because that's hopeless. It's just going to be rumination. Rebalance the system somatically, energetically, and get it back to a place of relative harmony. And then you can reflect on it. And it's important. Sometimes when we get back to a place of relative harmony, then we just kind of move on because we're like, it's over.
Just want to forget about it.
You want to forget about it. And that there's a term.
That's karma.
That's karma. Exactly. That's what turns the wheel, right? You got it. So it's like, no, when we're in a state of relative balance, we gently bring it up. We don't, and it's almost like in consciousness, we kind of like keep it as far away as we need to keep it so that we're not getting too reactive, and just see if we can maintain equanimity when it's a mile away. And then gradually it's half a mile, and soon it'll be in the room, right? And we can sense it, and we can still be equanimous, present. And then eventually we can take it into our heart, but no rush. It's getting closer and closer, and we're strengthening our capacity, because the nervous system has no difference between being in the room with Uncle Hiram, in quote, real reality, whatever that means, or thinking of him. There's no difference to our nervous system. So we can cultivate our capacity to be humorous, loving, and present with all these people without having to go there. And usually, it gives us 364 days to prepare, right?
Yeah. Do you think that doing that inner work with that person in mind has any effect on them, whether that's like a spiritual aspect or,
it does. It does. Because we're all connected. And and I've seen it so many times, but it's not, but here's the thing, for that to affect, if we're sort of doing the practice, hoping to change them, that'll have to be purified out, right?
Yeah.
The change, the non-local change, the field effect, so to speak, is going to happen the more, with the more wholehearted integrity that we bring to our own purification and awakening.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. Wow, that was good. A bit of therapy.
Good. The thing is, it's a lifestyle. That's the thing. It's a way of life, right?
Yeah.
It's not. It's remember, coming back, it's a way of life that we can pick up, and we don't have to master this today.
No.
Because we're going to be, we're eternal. So we're practicing, and it's like any habit development, step by step, incrementally. We want it to be digestible, So, but it is a lifestyle. And that's so clear. How are we, if we meditate, let's say we meditate for 1 minute a day. Then we have 20, how are we doing the 23 hours and 59 minutes of the rest of the time? Because all of that time is going to make it so that 1 minute of meditation is going to be productive, of peace or not. So you could say the whole life is just for this moment of meditation, where we have where we enter the laboratory and we go and we run the inner experiment. And we, hopefully we're like a scientist. We go, aha, eureka, I see. And then we come back out to our life.
And have to walk down the hallway.
Totally. Then you got to walk down the hallway. I used to leave. So my guru had a place called the Temple of Kriya Yoga. And Devi and I would go there on Sunday. And it was in Chicago. you would park your car on the boulevard and walk into the temple, and I would sit in the temple with Kriyananda, and I would listen to him, and I would think, I know this. It's so true. Oh, this is so true. And I already know this, which is how we often feel with spiritual wisdom. And oh yes. And then we'd leave the temple, and it's another example of it. And we'd walk across the boulevard to the car. And by the time I got to the car, I would be saying to Devi, that makes no sense. I'd be picking it apart. And she would laugh. And
yeah, that's quite funny. Yeah, mind plays a few tricks on us, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. It's just been such an amazing discussion, Eric. Thank you. We didn't quite get to everything that I wanted to touch on, but I know time is ticking by. So you did mention to me that you're launching a new intro program next month in June, Return to Radiance. Do you want to just give us a quick rundown of what that's all about?
Sure. This is going to be an introduction to the 3 disciplines of Kriya Yoga: the discipline of the interning, uplifting, the discipline of the bringing the radiance in to heal the body, mind, and then the discipline of embodying that in your life expression. And so it's going to be it's a 2-session class to really
get all that done in 2 sessions.
It's to introduce core practice and to introduce the framework, so people can then decide if they want to, cultivate it or not. But it's like, I feel like it's the time for our community. We have this thing called the Wisdom Heart Community. People can find that on wisdomheart.com. And I've been teaching for decades, but I've never created the intro course, which is like how to get oriented to all this material. So it's time to do that. And that's what we're offering. It's a way for people to dip their toe in and get an overview and to learn some of the methods and to sample those methods so that they can get a sense of what it would mean for them in their life and how it could be enriching for them and how they can adapt it. That's one of the important things in Kriya Yoga, is adapting the program, so to speak, to your situation. And so if people there's 2 ways to take this class. One is just sort of take it, and the other one is calling it the premium way, which is to take it and get a half hour with me so we can together do some individualizing of the material for your particular situation. So that's coming in. I'm excited about it. I think it's a missing piece in our vast library of stuff.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I'm definitely interested, but I'm always signing up for things. But I would love to learn more about Kriya Yoga and your teaching, your way of teaching it. So thank you. Looking forward to hearing more about that. I'll definitely put links in the show notes to your website and to any other materials you want me to share with our audience. So thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Lee.
I think we'll have to wrap it up there, I'm afraid. So thank you so much, Eric, for joining us here in the Wellbeing Room today. It's been a real honor and a pleasure to have you share your thoughts and experiences with us. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.